Today is Monday, October 6, 2025, and according to what I've studied in the Torah and what I know about YAH's calendar today is more than likely a high holy day, Sukkot or Tabernacles. And as usual, YAH gives me incredible revelation, and this Sukkot is no exception. And today we are going to take a look at YAH's appointed fall holy set-apart days, which in Hebrew are called the Moedim. And these set-apart days tell the story of YAH's people's journey back to Him. First comes Yom Teruah, the day of blowing, when YAH's breath moves to awaken. Then Yom Kippur, the day of atonement, the time of repentance and cleansing. And finally, Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, the dwelling beneath YAH's covering. It's the rhythm of return, awakening, repentance, and dwelling with YAH. And what YAH has shown me is the book of Jonah is the hidden revelation of YAH's fall set-apart holy days. We will be breaking up the story in the book of Jonah into sections according to the fall feast days. So to start, we will look at Yom Teruah, the wind that awakens the prophet Jonah. Jonah represents the remnant today, those chosen but reluctant, hearing YAH's call while living among the nations steeped in idolatry. YAH's command for Jonah to warn Nineveh exposed the fear and pride still bound in his heart. Yom Teruah literally means day of blowing. It is the moment when YAH's own breath, his ruach, moves the whole earth to wakefulness. It's not merely the sound of an instrument or a trumpet. It is the sound of YAH's living breath calling his people to arise in repentance and truth. When the book of Jonah opens, that same breath moves. Jonah 1 verse 4. But YAH sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. That wind was Yom Teruah in motion, YAH's blowing that brings both judgment and awakening. Jonah was asleep in the ship, surrounded by pagan sailors, while the storm raged. The wind shook the vessel. The pagans cried to their gods. Yet Jonah, the remnant, lay still until the trumpet of YAH's storm forced him to face his disobedience. When Jonah confessed to the sailors that he was a Hebrew and he had fled from YAH, the men feared greatly. They repented, cried out to YAH for mercy, and eventually cast Jonah into the sea. Jonah's confession of being a Hebrew and being disobedient to YAH revealed YAH's power and purpose to the nations, which turned their hearts. Jonah 1 verse 13. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring the boat to land, but they could not, for the sea grew even more violent against them. Then something remarkable happened. Jonah 1 verse 14. Wherefore they cried unto YAH and said, We beseech thee, O YAH, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not upon us innocent blood, for thou, O YAH, hast done as it pleased thee. That cry is prophetic. Even the pagans realized what religion has long ignored. YAH does not accept innocent blood as a sacrifice, and every man must die for his own sins. YAH desires repentance, not slaughter, just as he says in Hosea 6 verse 6. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of Elohim more than burnt offerings. So when they obeyed YAH and cast Jonah into the sea, it was not a blood offering. It was obedience to truth. They entrusted Jonah to YAH's will, not as a victim, but as a man returning to YAH. And YAH honored that obedience. Jonah 1 verse 16. Then the men feared YAH exceedingly, and offered a sacrifice unto YAH and made vows. Because of their repentance, YAH spared the ship. The Gentile witnessed his power and mercy and were awakened. A picture of the nations responding when the remnant admits who they are and that they have sinned and been disobedient against YAH's commandments. Because of their repentance, YAH spares the ship. The Gentiles witnessed YAH's power and mercy and were awakened. That's a picture of the nations responding when the remnant who knows who they are admits their sin. And just like today, the pattern repeats. The remnant sails in the same storm-tossed world with the nations. We are all in the same ship until the remnant confesses, "We are Hebrews, we have run from YAH and have been stubborn." The wind will continue to blow and the sea will rage. The storms and violence shaking the whole earth right now are the echo of that ancient tempest. YAH's breath rocking the nations awake, calling his people to repentance before destruction comes. The next section of the Jonah story is revealing Yom Kippur, the darkness and the altar of repentance. YAH does not desire human sacrifice, so instead of letting Jonah perish, he prepared a great fish, a place of darkness and separation, not destruction. This was Jonah's captivity, a symbol of the long night of idolatry and confusion that would one day be called Christianity, a time when the remnant would be swallowed by systems, claiming YAH, yet separated from him. The belly of the fish was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. It was isolation, reflection, darkness, and judgment. There, Jonah was forced to face his disobedience. He realized no religion, no system, no man could save him. Only YAH saves. Jonah 2, verses 7 through 10. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered YAH, and my prayer came in unto thee, into thine holy temple. They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercy, but I will sacrifice unto thee with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay that I have vowed. Salvation is of YAH. And YAH spoke unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. When Jonah surrendered and offered obedience instead of resistance, YAH accepted the living offering. The fish released him through the waters, a washing of renewal before he became YAH's servant. He passed through the sea as a prophet, purified to carry YAH's words. This was his atonement, his deliverance and cleansing through repentance. And the final section of the story of the book of Jonah ends with the revelation of Sukkot, which means tent or tabernacle, and tabernacle is the dwelling place of rest. And in this final section, we see that Jonah became obedient. Jonah rose and went to warn Nineveh. Jonah 3, verse 4. And Jonah began to enter into the city a day's journey, and he cried and said, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. At hearing this, Nineveh humbled itself outwardly, fasting and wearing sackcloth, and YAH in his mercy spared them, but their repentance did not endure. Over time, they returned to idolatry and corruption. You can read about their fall in Nahum 3, verses 1 through 4, where YAH reveals how the city again filled itself with violence and deceit. So the mercy Jonah witnessed was real but temporary, a lesson of YAH's compassion, giving everyone in the city a chance to return to him. But Jonah withdrew to the east of the city, burdened and confused by such mercy. There, YAH brought him into the final feast, tabernacles, Sukkot. Jonah 4, verse 5. So Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city, and there made him a booth or a sukkah, and sat under it in the shadow. That sukkah or tent became Jonah's classroom, and YAH caused a plant to rise, a shade of compassion. Then he prepared a worm to test Jonah's heart, and an east wind to refine him. Jonah 4, verses 6 through 8. Elohim prepared a gourd, and it came up over Jonah. But Elohim prepared a worm when the morning rose, and it smote the gourd that it withered. And it came to pass, when the sun did arise, that Elohim prepared a vehement east wind. The plant symbolized YAH's mercy. The worm, the exposure of pride. And the wind, Yah's presence, burning away self-righteousness until only compassion remained. Then Yah spoke. Jonah 4, verses 10 through 11. You feel sorry for the plant, though you did nothing to make it grow. It came up in a night and perished in a night. But should I not also care for Nineveh, that great city where more than 120,000 people live, who do not even know their right hand from their left, and so many animals as well? That was the lesson. Yah's dwelling is mercy. He covers us with compassion so that we may learn to have compassion for others. The wind that once threw Jonah into the sea and the wind that later scorched him in the desert wilderness were the same ruach, Yah's breath, moving first to judge and awaken, then to refine and dwell with him. It is the same wind that met Elijah on the mountain, the same whirlwind that answered Job, the same storm that shakes the remnant awake today. The storm feels painful, but it is Yah's presence breaking through to reveal truth. So this is the revelation of the fall holy days. Powerful wind awakens, Day of Atonement humbles, and the sukkah, dwelling with Yah, refines. This is the message of Sukkot. Yah covers us in our frailty, teaches us mercy beneath his shade, and accepts the living sacrifice of a heart fully yielded. He allows the worm to touch what is temporary, so only what is external endures. He sends the wind, not to destroy, but to dwell with us. And now, the remnant, like Jonah, waits outside the city, longing for the rest of Israel to awaken and lay down the idol, Jesus or Yeshua. Yah is tabernacling with us even now, whispering through the wind, teaching us mercy and preparing us for the day when He Himself will dwell among His people again. Zechariah 14, verse 16. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which come against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Yah of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.